Hello, this is Donna Warren with the Critical Thinking Center at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, and today I would like us to talk about decision making. Now, as we've seen, when we are called upon to make a decision, we are probably being confronted with a series of options that we can select. So our overarching question is, which of these options should we choose? There are, of course, smaller questions that can help us to answer this larger overarching question. And one of those smaller questions is, am I looking ahead? So, for instance, suppose that I'm playing a slot machine and I'm wondering if I should continue playing it. The answer that I might give myself is yes, I should continue playing this machine. And the reason that I would give to support that answer, if called upon to do so, might be something like, look, I've already spent $100 playing this machine. Now, what we have here is an argument, just like we saw in our last video. And arguments assume things. So let's think about what I'm assuming here. When I go from, I've already spent $100 playing on this machine, to I should continue doing it. Remember how we do this. The hidden assumption or the assumed premise that can help us to kind of bulk up this inference, or that is assumed by this inference, is the linking premise. So what we need to do is figure out what's in common between the conclusion and the reason, and what's not in common, so that we can link those things that are not in common. So let's do that. What's in common between the conclusion and the reason is me playing this machine. What's unique to the conclusion is this notion of continuing to do something. And what's unique to the reason is this notion of having already spent $100. So if we put those two things together with an if-then, where the bit in back of the if and before the then is taken from the reason, and the bit in back of the then is taken from the conclusion, what we get is this. If already spent $100, then should continue. Now, of course, we want to buff that out. We want to polish it, make it a halfway decent English sentence. And I suppose what this would really be is, if you've already spent $100 doing something, then you should continue it. But the underlying principle is less about having spent $100 than having made a significant investment. So what's really being assumed here is, we should continue activities in which we've already made a substantial investment. There's a name for that premise. It's called the sunk costs fallacy. Because guess what? That $100 that I've already played in that machine, it's gone. The likelihood of continuing to win is no greater than it would have been had I not spent $100. So I should just basically kiss that money goodbye and go on with my life. Generally speaking, when we decide what we should do, we should consider the probability and magnitude of future gains and losses of each option. We should look ahead. What do I stand to gain in the future from continuing to play this machine? That's a relevant question. Not how much have I already spent playing this machine. That's looking in the wrong direction, right? That's looking behind me, and I should be looking ahead. Let's see another example of this. Suppose I'm wondering, should I continue to read this boring book? And I think, yes, I should continue to plod through this book. Why, you ask? Well, because I'm already halfway through it. Well, again, that looks like the sunk cost fallacy. What I'm assuming is I should continue an activity simply because I've already made a substantial investment. But again, that's looking behind me. When I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I should look ahead. I should consider the future consequences, not fall prey to the sunk costs fallacy. One more example, because sometimes this can get a little bit tricky. Suppose I'm wondering if I should quit my job. And the answer I give is, no, I shouldn't quit it. And if you ask me, why are you not quitting the job, even though you're really miserable in it, or maybe not really miserable, but suppose I am just kind of marginally unhappy in my job. And I say, look, I've had this job for 3 years, so no, I shouldn't quit it. There, it looks like what I'm doing is I'm looking behind, right? It looks like what I'm saying is, I'm going to continue this activity because I've already made a substantial investment in it. I've been in this job for 3 years, so I'm going to tough it out. If in fact that is what I'm thinking, I am making the sunk costs fallacy. I'm falling prey to that. But that might not be what I'm doing, because sometimes future gains are a product of continued investment. So we have to be kind of careful. What if what I'm thinking when I go from I've had this job for 3 years to I shouldn't quit it is not, look, 3 years in, I'm going to grit my teeth and I'm going to continue working for this corporation, like it or not. What if in fact what I'm thinking is, I'm going to be fully invested in my company's retirement plan after 5 years. So if I leave after 5 years, basically any kind of matching donation that they've made to my retirement account, I get to take with me. I'm not willing to sacrifice that money by leaving now. I would rather kind of tough it out for 2 more years. That's not the sunk costs fallacy, right? That is, in fact, looking forward. It's just that when I look forward, what I'm thinking about as a potential gain is, in fact, partially a product of the fact that I've already spent 3 years. You get it? Sometimes looking back is relevant, sometimes it's not. The best way, I think, to make sure that we're not engaging in the sunk cost fallacy is to always make sure that we're looking ahead first. Am I looking ahead? Sometimes deciding what would be best for me going forward is a function of what I've already done, the time I've already put in, the money I've already invested maybe. But sometimes it isn't. The mere fact that I've spent $100 in a machine is no reason to think that I should continue to play that slot machine. The mere fact that I'm halfway into a boring book is no reason for me to believe that I have any kind of obligation to continue reading it. The mere fact that I have spent 3 years in a job that I don't particularly like is no reason for me to stay in that job. All of that is, in fact, the sunk cost fallacy. We ought not do that. We should always look ahead when we are moving forward. Next time, we're going to talk about problem solving, thinking about moving forward. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.